Hey all, welcome to the video. My name is John, and today I'm going to be walking you through part 2 of a video series where I show you how to scrape eBay sales data into Google Sheets. Part 1, if you missed it, was a demonstration video where we added these inputs and we were provided the related sales data that you see on the screen. As I mentioned in the prior video, the sales data is not being pulled by web scraping software, nor is it pulled by Google's API. Instead, it is solely being pulled by formulas, which are native to Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel. Also, for the entire video series, we will be using sports card data. Please know that in eBay, you can search any data and pull very similar sort of results, but we will be using sports card data since it is a large aspect of eBay. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in and start building the framework of this tool. So to build the framework, we need to create 2 new workbooks in Google Sheets. So I'm currently in Google Sheets. I'm going to duplicate this tab so we have 2 tabs open, and we are going to create 2 brand new workbooks. The first, just by simply clicking create a new spreadsheet. The first one we want to call, you can call it what you want. I'm going to call mine example underscore main page. And before we rename the second workbook, you really do want to also rename the tab away from sheet 1. We're just going to call this main. That'll make it easier for some reference data here in just a moment that we'll be talking about. But let's look at the workbook number 2. Let's call this example underscore sold data. Or let's call it actually eBay underscore eBay data. All right, there's no real reason why you need to call it one thing or another. You can call it whatever you want. Just make sure that you understand that this is the main page. This is where you're going to be putting all your variables and where ultimately you're going to spend all of your time. But the second page is going to be the workhorse. This is where we're going to build all of the various formulas and things that kind of pull everything together. So this workbook, we do also want to rename it away from sheet 1. We're going to call this URL. This is to build the dynamic URL. And then the second worksheet, we're just going to call this item underscore price. And when you're dealing with coding or scripting, typically you want to omit spaces. So if you can, avoid adding a space. If you're going to have a multi-word such as this, just add an underscore or merge the 2 words together. You're going to save yourself some hassle in the long run by doing this. Before we fully jump into the first page, I also just want to launch a third web browser, and let's just put eBay up since this is where we're going to be pulling our data from. Okay, to the main page. Again, this is where we're going to do all of our searches and where the outputs of the searches are going to come into. So I like to normally avoid column A. And so I'm just going to go ahead and reduce that column and start in B2. Well, what this naturally does is creates a border around the information, and it's not necessary. It's something I like to do. As I mentioned, we're going to use sports card data. This is a sports card channel after all. If you aren't doing sports card data, that's totally fine. Feel free to name these headers as you choose. But for the sports card folks, we are going to call our first header year. And this was the year that the card was produced. The second one will be brand. This is the company who made the card. We need the athlete's first name. We need the athlete's last name. We need the card number. And we need the grade, because again, we're going to be pulling grading information. You don't have to do this. I am going to go ahead and just pull or expand on the headers just so it's easier for you guys to see. Okay, next to the headers in column C, I'm just going to put boxes around these. The only reason why I'm doing that again is for your benefit, so you can see exactly where our input variables are going to go. And let's go ahead and just put in some reference data so that when we pull this information from this workbook over to this workbook, we'll be able to see that we've pulled that information over. So let's put in 1954 Topps, Hank Aaron card number 128, and let's look at that in a grade 3. I'm going to just highlight these. I'm going to do a right alignment just so everything's a little bit more uniform. And we're good for this page for a moment. Let's go ahead and start working on this page here. And actually, let's make sure that we're in the URL. And this is where we want to start pulling in URL information. So let's go build a reference URL. And that's why we have eBay pulled up. Let's go put in this same level of information. So let's put in the 1954 Topps Hank Aaron, card number 128. Now, the next piece, this PSA, we're going to hard code this here in a moment. But for now, let's just put in PSA 4, did I say 4 or 3? PSA 3. And then I'm also going to omit some data. And if you're not totally familiar with how to omit data, you simply put a minus symbol. I know I just did a video about a week ago, so if you're wanting to learn how to search eBay like a pro, go watch that video. I talk about multivariable searches. I talk about omitting data in more advanced ways. Not everybody's familiar with this, so you'll find some value in that video. Feel free to watch it. But for right now, because these are sports cards and I want to omit prices of cards that may have autographs because potentially they've sold for more, and then I want to omit maybe flaws that I just really don't want to see value, or I have zero value in pulling that data back in. So let's go ahead and omit a few things. I want to omit auto, which is autographs. I want to omit signed, in case they called it a signed card. I'm going to omit DNA. That's part of the autographs. That's for PSA DNA. I want to omit reprint, in case the card is a reprint. Another way of saying reprint for eBay is RP. I want to omit off-centered cards, so OC. I want to omit marked cards, so MK. There may be other things that you want to omit. We're just going to go ahead and use this as our search value for now. So let's go ahead and hit search. And what this is going to do is pull all of the active listings. Let's go ahead and scroll down and just click our sold listings, because really what we're wanting to see is the sold data. So once we've identified that we have our sold data pulled up, let's go ahead and grab this URL, because this is really what we're after. Let's copy that URL, come back to our eBay data, and in cell A1 of URL, we're going to put this reference information in cell A1. Okay, reference information is going to be handy for this part here. We're going to actually piecemeal this apart. Starting with the HTTPS, let's go ahead and drag this over to where it says NKW equals. And I'm going to stop just short of the year 1954. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste that in cell A2. Okay, reason why we stopped short of the year and the brand and the name is we're going to make those the variables, or the dynamic variables. So when people post the information here, when you post the information here, you want it to be copied over here. And we're going to do that by tying this spreadsheet with this spreadsheet. So we want the eBay data spreadsheet to be able to read these cells. We're going to do that with a function or a formula. That formula is equals import range is going to work for us. So import range with an open parentheses, then we're going to put a double quotation marks, and please make sure you're not putting 2 single quotes. This truly needs to be double quotes. Come to the main page, and now we want to grab the URL of the main page. Let's go ahead and copy it. Come back over to our formula bar and paste it in our formula bar. And so now we have the HTTPS Google spreadsheets, and this long like list of characters and numbers, that's the actual identifier that links us back to this page. Now there's some things at the very end here that we want to omit. Really anything after that / needs to go. So the 0 equals, the GID, the hashtag, and the edit, and that / all need to go. So we've now removed all of that. Let's put in a second set of double quotes, a comma, a third double quote, and now we need to go tell it what page it's on. We name that page main, so we're going to come back here and type in the page number. Then we're going to separate the page from the cell by an exclamation point. So put in an exclamation point, and then coming back, we want to grab the cell information of C2. So now we're going to come back and add in C2. We're going to close this with a final double quotation and an ending parentheses. We're going to hit enter, and we're going to see that it's loading and takes us to a ref. It's not broke, trust me. That ref, when we hover over it, it's going to basically tell us, hey, this is the first time that you wanted to connect this workbook with the other workbook. Do you want to grant that permission? The answer is yes. Go ahead and click allow. And now you'll see that the year that we had in cell C2 is being published on this other workbook. Let's go ahead and copy this, and we're going to add in the rest of these cells. So we're going to copy that and paste it in rows 4 through 8. And you'll notice that it didn't change the rows or the various cells. So we're going to go ahead and update those now. It's still pulling C2 in this row. We need it to say C3. So let's change that to C3, hit enter. In row 5, we need this one to be C4, and so on and so forth. We're just going to keep incrementing these by 1. Okay, so now all of our variables, and I'm just going to align this so that they're easier to see. The year, the brand, the first name, last name, the card number, and the grade assignment are now dynamic variables. And by dynamic, just one last time, if I was to change one of these variables, let's make this 2023. We'll come back to this page, and it updated to 2023. So these now are polling live in between one spreadsheet and the other. Okay, now when we look at our variable here, we've already omitted this, or we've already extracted this. Let's keep searching. Now we've added the 1954. Now we need to add these plus symbols. We're going to add those plus symbols in column 2. So to do that, we're going to put a single quote and a plus symbol, hit enter. And that's going to now make it so we can tie these all together. Let's just go ahead and copy that and paste that. Now we're going to end up adding this PSA, but if we continue down the line, we've now got Tops plus Hank plus Aaron plus 128 plus, and then we have this PSA. So we're going to go ahead and add this PSA behind the plus. This is hard coding it, so this won't be a variable. Now you could make it a variable if you want. I'm choosing not to because I want to parse out PSA data, and then if I wanted to add in SGC or any other grading company, I would create its own unique URL. But for right now, I'm going to add the PSA and the plus after the PSA and hit enter. And so continuing down, now we will have the PSA, the plus, then the grade, then the plus. And then everything after that plus, so 3 plus, we want to add in cell A9. So let's come back up to A1, and we've got our 3 plus. Starting with that minus symbol, we want to grab auto all the way through 1, and we're just going to copy this and paste this into that cell A9. And so now we can take this information and tie it all together and create a dynamic URL. We're going to go ahead and skip row 10 just so it's cleaner to see. And we are going to do a combination, and that is equals. And we want to combine cell A1 and cell A2. And now we want to grab that plus cell, not A2, sorry. We're combining A2 and A3, then we're grabbing the plus symbol, which is in B3, and now we want to come back down to the tops, and let's grab that plus symbol, and we're just going to do this daisy chain effect of clicking in each cell, grabbing it, or adding it to our string here, and then adding a plus symbol in between, or an and symbol in between each of these. Okay, almost done here. Our last one's going to be cell A9. We're not going to add an and symbol after that. Instead, we're just going to hit enter. And now we have a dynamic URL. So now when these variables change, the variables down here will change as well. Okay, part 1 is done. Let's go ahead and just test this out so you guys can see this. Let's change this to a 1972. We're going to keep tops. We'll change this to Willie Mays. It's card number 49, I believe. Let's change that to a grade of 5. And when we come over here, those variables have changed. And when we look in our dynamic URL, those variables have changed. Now we are done with the first part. Let's move on to the second part, which is focusing on the item price. Okay, we're coming back to eBay, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because this is, something that can be very complex for folks. I will share with you the variables that I'm about to just briefly talk about. They are in the description below of this video, and so you can just go and copy and paste them. But we're going to go ahead and highlight that price, and I'm going to right-click on my mouse, click Inspect, and what's going to pull up is this Elements page. And it's going to share with us that price of $4,199. That's that purchase right there. That purchase, ironically, was just made today as I'm recording this video. And it is part of a class of S-item _price. Now, all of this information are elements that are part of XML and an href. And it's kind of really associated with the HTML that's kind of under the hood. So if you are a coder who's creating web pages, you're creating the elements that do all of this so that we as users get to see the nice, pretty page. But we can go in, or we can go under the hood, and we can start extracting information. And this class, which is part of a greater list, which is part of a part of this greater href, we can go pull this information out just by understanding the nomenclature. Now, I'm not going to go over the nomenclature. You can go do the research related to XML. You can do the research related to hrefs. You can do the research related to HTML. You can do the research related to XPath. That's all on you. What I'm here to show you today is I'm going to provide you with the XPath that we are going to use for this search. That XPath, again, you can find this in the description. Let me just copy it from my other screen. That XPath is going to be this information here. Now, I did point out, let me make this just slightly bigger so that you guys don't strain your eyes. As you can see there, that class that I referenced, the S-item _price, we're pulling in that class, which is part of a list, which is part of this ID, SRP River Main. And all of this is part of the HTML that's kind of under the hood. But knowing these, we can actually go parse out the information we're looking for. Now, in tomorrow's video, I will be posting the XML data for the shipping information. And in the video after that, I'll be posting the XML data for the dates. And ultimately, all three of these will tie together. For right now, this is the most important piece that you're going to need. And we are going to do another function, which is going to look at this URL, tie it to this XML data, and provide us the prices, the recently sold prices. How do we do that? We simply come in and we're going to do another function. That function is called IMPORTXML. It's going to give us an open parentheses. We're going to navigate over to the URL, and we are going to click on cell A11. It's going to populate URL exclamation point A11. We're going to add a comma. We're going to navigate back over to the item price. We're going to click in cell A1. That's where the XML data is at. And we are going to close this. And when we do, it's going to provide us the prices, the recently sold prices of that 1972 Willie Mays. Now, I realize here we have this card up. Let's go ahead and just close this, and we can quickly launch that URL. If we just hover, it'll provide us an opportunity to go click this, and we can see that the last card, this last Willie Mays to sell, was a $65 price. The one before that was $59. If we come here to our item price, I want you to ignore that $20 price for now. That's part of the code that's further up. But you're going to see that the price of the last sale was $65 and the one before that was $59, so on and so forth. So now we've effectively scraped all of the item prices, the recently sold item prices. And again, eBay provides us with about 90 days worth of data. So over the last 90 days, we had, I believe this is going to come out to be 13. We had 13 items that were sold in the last 90 days, and these were the prices that they sold for. Now, in the data that we're going to build over the next couple of days, we're going to want to add shipping to this because we want to talk in total price, not just the sell price. We want to add in that shipping information. I see more value there because to me, that's the actual out-of-pocket price. But that's going to be in tomorrow's video when we add in the shipping information. But to try and add a little bit more to today's video, we are going to go ahead and pull over the volume or count. This is the volume of cards that was sold. So let's go ahead and add in that piece today. And we are going to do that on the item price sheet. I want you to scroll all the way over to L1, and I want you to put in count. And now let's run a formula that's going to count how many items. So we're going to do equals and count. And again, I mentioned we want to omit that $20. We're going to start on cell A4, and I want you to click and select it and drag down only one. And then I want you to come to the formula bar, and we're going to change that 5 to 100. And now here's the thing. We want to expand this cell larger than what we currently see on the screen. And that's because when we search another card, there may be 50 cells, or we might search the card after that, and there might only be 3 cells. So we want to have a search area big enough that we can capture all the cards that we want to see. If we make it too small, then it's not going to necessarily capture that, and you're only going to get partial data. So the way that we do that is we're going to expand what we call a range. So now this is going to look for all of the cards, all of the prices between cell A4 and A100. We're just going to simply close this with a parentheses, clothing parentheses, hit enter. And now we get that count of 13. Earlier, we seen that there were 13 total sales. Addressing this 20. As I mentioned, there's code further up, and I'd have to dig in to fully omit this. But for right now, for today's video, we're just going to ignore that $20. We're only going to focus on these rows of data. Normally, what I would tell you is to just go ahead and make that cell black, so that way you're not seeing it, so that you're training your eye that really all you care about is the cells A1 through A16. Of course, our range is much bigger than that. So if we do go find a card with multiple cells, let's actually do that. Let's look at a card that has more cells. Let's look at a 1986 Fleer Charles Barkley, Ley. That's card number 7, and let's look at that in a PSA grade, 8 grade. So now when we come back here, you're going to see a whole bunch of cells, additional cells. There's 57 total cells. We can verify that if we come over to our URL. We can actually, again, launch eBay, and there's 57 total cells. So we're getting everything in our query. And that's why we wanted to expand that range beyond or down to 100 total cells, because it allows us to go and get cards that have greater volumes of cells. Now, you can expand that to 1,000. You can expand it as large as you want. For our demonstrations, we've only expanded it to 100. It's generally going to capture most everything that we are looking at from a card community perspective. Final thing I want to do is we now need this spreadsheet to read information from this spreadsheet. So let's go pull this count. And we again are going to run that import range formula. And this time, we need the double quotations. This time we need to grab the URL of the second spreadsheet. Coming up to our formula bar, we're going to paste that after the double quotation marks. Again, we're going to get rid of everything to the /, including the /. And we're going to put in a second double quotations, a comma, space, a third double quotations, and we named that sheet item price, item underscore price. So let's type in item underscore price, exclamation point. And now what cell was that? That was cell M1. So we want to copy the information from cell M1. So coming back over, we're putting in M1, final double quotes, a final closing parentheses, hit enter. Now we're going to get that same reference because this is the first time this spreadsheet is reading information from that spreadsheet. So we're simply going to allow the access one time and one time only, and voila, we've got the 57 total sales. Now, we're not going to add in the average price today. Again, I want to tie in the sales data. That's tomorrow's video, and then we'll add in that aspect. There's a little bit of additional code we have to do to fully hone in the sales or the shipping information. So if you're interested in seeing the next part of this, part 3, tune in to the next video. If you enjoyed this and you're seeing value, please hit like. If you are interested in getting notifications, hit that notification button. And if you're interested in this content moving forward, please hit subscribe. We'll chat with you guys in the next one.